Okay, so we had a look at the pelvis, the sacrum, and now we're moving up to the lumbar. So in this model, you see the lumbar vertebra as this green section here. And these are the big, supportive, weight-bearing, chunky vertebra that run down through your core. And they are the only skeletal structure in the core of your body. Again, weight-bearing, again, particularly lower down, vulnerable. So let's look at the various movements of your lumbar. It has a lordotic curve when it's in its neutral position. And some people are more lordotic than others. Some people have a little bit more of a flat back, depending quite often on the tilt of the pelvis, which we looked at in the previous video. And most people have about 5 lumbar vertebrae, but if you have mobility between the L5 and the sacrum, if this joint down here is mobilized, we call that a sacralized lumbar vertebra or a lumbarized sacral vertebra. And likewise, sometimes the L1 and T12 vertebra are very similar to each other and have the same range of movement. And in fact, some people can hinge in that area, creating much more extreme back bends. And so if you are one of these people that are born, and you do have to be born with this type of vertebral column, then your back bends may look more extreme than other back bends, other people's back bends. And if you don't have that extra mobility in your lumbar, then you shouldn't and mustn't try to achieve the kind of back bends that you might see somebody else doing. Otherwise, you will damage your body. So you learn about whether you have mobility here or not, and really work within your own unique spine. The compression when we come into a back bend, so when we open up the bones at the front of the spine, which is spinal extension, bones moving away from each other causes extension in a joint. So the bones we think of as being at the front here, and they open up to create the back bend, but there's not much back bend available here because these processes, these spinal processes that stick out at the back of the vertebra, connect together and prevent further movement. We do have some ability to flex the lumbar, so flexion is when bones move closer together. So again, if we move towards the front, we think about these bones closing the gap. That flattens out the lumbar curve. We wouldn't want to flex the spine as we move forward in space. That compresses the discs and can cause sciatica, prolapsed disc, herniation. So really be aware of that safety of the spine, not to allow your lumbar spine to flex as you go to pick things up off of the floor, or particularly if you're bending down and then you twist to maybe pick up something from the floor and put it on a shelf. That would be extremely bad for your lower back. Learn about, and we'll do a whole session one of these days on safe movement of the spine. But we do have this ability to flex the lumbar, and it should be done. We should strengthen those rectus abdominal muscles at the front of the body to support the spine and its lumbar spine and its ability to flex, but we should do that lying down on the floor, which is much safer. There is very little rotation in the lumbar spine. Again, facet joints prevent, so bone and bone compression, prevent the lumbar from twisting very much either direction. And so we don't try to force the lumbar to twist much. We accept that it just doesn't have a huge twisty ability. It does have quite a good ability to laterally flex side to side, and we should encourage that. Again, if you're going to do that from a standing position, do have your hands on your hips, say, so that you're not just letting gravity pull your spine in that direction, you're assisting the spine in its ability to bend sideways by having your hands resting on something, so that it takes some of the transmission out of the force out of the side bend. But do train your muscles here to stretch, and for the fascia and so on to stretch and increase your ability to laterally flex this area. So we will just think about this little red area here, which is shows a prolapsed disc. You can see the foramen. Foramen just means a hole where your spinal nerves come out. This is showing L1, 2, 3. Actually, usually happens a bit lower down in 4, 5, where, as I say, that can be the most vulnerable area of compression. And if the intervertebral discs that cushion between the bony vertebra, these discs here, get squished, it can cause herniation, prolapse. Some people call that a slip disc, and that puts pressure on the nerve, and that can be one cause of sciatica. So again, really important to keep the core very strong, to support. Probably more important to be very stable in this part of your body rather than mobile and flexible. So we'll really look at core stability and strength and stability around this area rather than flexibility. Okay, and the next video will move up into the thoracic area. Thanks for watching.